quorum. Honorables membres du comité, je constate qu'il y a
Honorable committee members, I see that we have quorum.
106.3A. As the clerk of the committee, I will preside over the election of the chair and the vice chairs. I must inform members that the clerk of the committee can only receive motions for the election of the chair. The clerk cannot receive other types of motions, cannot entertain points of order, nor participate in debate. We can now proceed to the election of the chair. Pursuant to Standing Order 106.2, the chair must be a member of the government party. I am ready to receive motions for the chair. Madam Kutakis.
I would like to nominate Robert Morrissey for the chair.
Are there any other further motions? It has been moved by Ms. Kutakis that Mr. Morrissey be elected as chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion? I declare the motion carried and Mr. Morrissey duly elected chair of the committee.
Just take. So I'll make sure I'm on the. Okay. Thank you for that. The nomination. Sometimes there's no choices. So before we begin, I want to remind everybody of choose the language that you wish to participate in during the meeting, and make sure you're on the right channel so we can fully participate as well. Please refrain from tapping the booms or any reaching to ensure the safety of our translators and interpreters. So, yeah, with that, we continue to go. So if the committee is in agreement, I invite the clerk to preside over the election of the vice chairs.
So pursuant to Standing Order 106.2, the first vice chair must be a member of the official opposition. I am now ready to receive motions for the first vice chair. Mr. Genuis.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And if I can just say, first of all, congratulations to you, Mr. Chair, and we look forward to working with you. And I'm pleased to nominate Ms. Rosemary Falk, the vice chair.
It has been moved by Mr. Genuis that Ms. Falk be elected as first vice chair of the committee. Are there any further motions? I will now put the motion to the committee. It has been moved by Mr. Genuis that Ms. Falk be elected as first vice chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion? I declare the motion carried and Ms. Falk duly elected the first vice chair of the committee.
Congratulations, Ms. Falk. I believe you have the most extensive experience on this committee of the current members. Yeah, you were here before me. Yeah. No? Okay.
But sure, I'll take it. I'll take
no,
it.
I'm sure you were. Okay, we need...
Pursuant to Standing Order 106.2, the second vice chair must be a member of an opposition party other than the official opposition. I am now prepared to receive motions for the second vice chair.
Oui, merci. Alors, premièrement, félicitations. Thank you, and congratulations to Ms. Falk and to the chair. I would like to nominate Marilyn Gill as second vice chair.
Il est proposé par Madame
It is moved by Ms. Desrochers that Ms. Gill be elected as second vice chair of the committee. Are there any further motions? I will now put the motion to the committee. It has been moved by Ms. Desrochers that Ms. Gill be elected as second vice chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion? I declare the motion carried and Ms. Gill duly elected second vice chair of the committee.
Oh, good. Okay, now that we have dealt with the election of the executive of the committee, we will move to the adoption of the routine, right?
Yep, routine motions.
Yep. So to all members, especially incoming members, the committees generally adopt routine motions that have been discussed by the various parties. But when adopted, if you choose, ensure the orderly conduct of the meetings and that everybody has their fair share of time in going through. So I believe every member would have received the routine motions. If you have them all, is it your wish to go one by one or simply adopt them as presented? Mr. Jonas?
I think they should be read out, but we could maybe just read them all out and then agree to them.
That's fine with me. I'll ask the clerk then to yeah. Want to, Mr. Jonas, if you would make that as a motion then?
I guess I will move that the committee retain as needed and at the discretion of the chair the services of one or more analysts from the Library of Parliament to assist in its work.
Good. Is there agreement to adopt?
Yep.
You're going to go through each one, or do you want to?
If it's the will of the committee, Chair, I can read several, maybe to the bottom of the first page, and then someone else can do, or I can put up my hand and read them all at once, whatever the committee wishes.
When we forgot, I was wondering where they were at. The familiar analysts are sitting in the back of the room, so I would invite the analysts to come and join me at the head of the committee for the new members. These are your analysts for Yuma. Good. Good to have you back. Sorry I overlooked you. You're always there. I just assumed you were. Okay, with that, then let's. So we had a motion from Mr. Jones on the first one that was carried. We're now down to subcommittee. I'm going to go through each subcommittee on agenda procedure. If it's good, I'll ask for a motion to adopt it. Madam Koutrakis.
If you're moving a motion, the motion has to be. I mean, I assume we all have the same sheet, but should we read out the motion so that they're on the record? The clerks are nodding that I think that's the best practice. So
Okay.
just
Mr.
move the motion, then
Koutrakis.
we'll all get as we go.
So is it my understanding that I move the motion each time, or can I just go forward and read several?
No, each one has to be.
Each one, okay. So Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure, that the Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure be established and be composed of 4 members, the chair and 1 member from each recognized party as designated by each party's whip, and that the subcommittee work in a spirit of collaboration.
That's good. Next routine motion. Do we have a mover? Lila, Ms. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That the chair be authorized to hold meetings to receive evidence and to have that evidence published when a quorum is not present, provided that at least 4 members are present, including 2 members of the opposition parties and 2 members of the government party.
Heard it? Agree? Good. Next, travel. Ms. Falk?
That when traveling outside the parliamentary precinct, A, the meeting begin after 15 minutes, regardless of whether quorum is present, and B, no substantive motion may be moved during such meetings.
You've heard it. Agreement. Motion carried. Next. Mr.
Que les témoins disposent des 5 minutes.
That witnesses be given 5 minutes for their opening statements. That whenever possible, witnesses provide the committee with their opening statements 72 hours in advance. That, at the discretion of the chair, during the questioning of witnesses, there be allocated 6 minutes for the first questioner of each party as follows. First round, Conservative Party, Liberal Party, Bloc Québécois. For the second and subsequent rounds, the order and time for questioning are to be as follows. Conservative Party, 5 minutes. Liberal Party, 5 minutes. Bloc Québécois, 2.5 minutes. Conservative Party, 5 minutes. Liberal Party, 5 minutes.
You've heard the routine motion. Looks like agreement. Motion carried. Document distribution. Mr. Jennings?
Que seul le greffier du comité
That only the clerk of the committee be authorized to distribute documents to members of the committee, and only when the documents are in both official languages, and that all documents submitted to the committee in both official languages that do not come from a federal department, members' offices, or that have not been translated by the Translation Bureau be sent for linguistic review by the Translation Bureau before being distributed to members, and that the witnesses be advised accordingly.
You've heard the motion. Agree? Carried. Working meals. This is a big one. Don't complain to me about the lunch. Mr. Koutrakis, Madame Koutrakis.
Repas de travail. Que le greffier
Working meals. That the clerk of the committee, at the discretion of the chair, be authorized to make the necessary arrangements to provide working meals for the committee and its subcommittees.
You've heard it. Carried? Carried. Travel accommodations. Mr. Reynolds? Sorry, Mr. Reynolds.
That if requested, reasonable travel, accommodation, and living expenses be reimbursed to witnesses not exceeding 2 representatives per organization, and that in exceptional circumstances, payment for more representatives be made at the discretion of the chair.
Heard it? Agree? Agree. Access to in-camera meetings. Ms. Goodrich.
Que à moins qu'il soit ordonné.
That, unless otherwise ordered, each committee member be allowed to be accompanied by 1 staff member at in-camera meetings, and that 1 additional person from each House officer's office be allowed to be present. That during in-camera meetings, committee members may be informed by the committee chair of the MPs who have been designated as substitutes for permanent members, in order to know which MPs are authorized to speak and vote during these committee meetings. That only those who have been recognized and identified as such be authorized to speak, in keeping with the usual agreed rules of order and decorum.
Merci, Madame. Agreement? Agreed. You've heard the motion? Carried. Transcripts of in-camera meetings. Ms. Falk?
That 1 copy of the transcript of each in-camera meeting be securely retained by the committee clerk for consultation by members of the committee or by their staff, and that the analysts assigned to the committee have access to the in-camera transcripts.
Heard the motion? Carried? Carried. Notice of motion, Mr. Joseph. Ms. Landry? Ms. Landry.
Thank you. Notice of motion that a 48-hour notice interpreted as 2 nights be required for any substantive motion to be moved in committee unless the substantive motion relates directly to business, then under consideration provided that A, the notice be filled with the clerk of the committee no later than 4 p.m. from Monday to Thursday and no later from 2:30 p.m. on Friday. That B, the motion be distributed to members and the offices of the whips of each recognized party in both official languages by the clerk on the same day the said notice was transmitted, if it was received no later than the deadline hour. And C, notices received after the deadline hour or on non-business days be deemed to have been received during the next business day.
Carried. Carried. Next technical test for witnesses, Monsieur Joseph. Oh, I'm not.
Bon, merci, Monsieur le Président. En fait,
Thank you, Chair. I also wanted to participate and read one of the routine motions.
Technical test for the witness, Madame Gill.
J'étais à ordre de renvoi.
I thought we were at the orders of reference.
Reference from the House respecting
Ouais.
bills. Madame Gill.
C'est bon.
Yes, orders of reference from the House respecting bills. That in relation to orders of reference from the House respecting bills, A, the clerk of the committee shall, upon the committee receiving such an order of reference, write to each member who is not a member of a caucus represented on the committee to invite those members to file with the clerk of the committee in both official languages any amendments to the bill which is the subject of the said order, which they would suggest that the committee consider. B, suggested amendments filed pursuant to paragraph A at least 48 hours prior to the start of clause-by-clause consideration of the bill to which the amendments relate shall be deemed to be proposed during said consideration, provided that the committee may by motion vary this deadline in respect of a given bill. And C, during the clause-by-clause consideration of a bill, the chair shall allow a member who filed suggested amendments pursuant to paragraph A an opportunity to make brief representation of support of them. Thank you, Madam Gill.
Carried. Agreed. Technical test for a witness, Madame Desrosiers.
OK. Essai technique.
Technical tests for witnesses. That the clerk inform each witness who is to appear before the committee that the House Administration support team must conduct technical tests to check the connectivity and the equipment used to ensure the best possible sound quality, and that the chair advise the committee at the start of each meeting of any witness who did not perform the required technical tests.
Merci, Madame Desrosiers.
Thank you.
Carried. See, carried. Monsieur Joseph.
Oui. Que les greffiers, la greffière du comité.
That the clerk of the committee be authorized to grant access to the committee's digital binder to the offices of the whips of each recognized party.
Merci. You have a question on that? Oh. Agreed. Okay. Agreed. Carried. Maintenance of order and decorum. Who wants that one? Madame Falk.
That during meetings, the chair, if necessary, uses his prerogative to suspend the meeting to maintain the order and decorum necessary to ensure the application of the House of Commons policies on workplace health and safety.
You've heard the routine. Shall it carry? See an agreement? That concludes the routine motions that have been presented. Yeah, I'll get you. That have been presented to the committees and have been agreed to. So thank you for that committee. Those motions will guide us. Ms. Falk, you had.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair, and congratulations on your election to steer the ship. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed working with you in the past, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I would like to move a motion that, pursuant to Standing Order 1082, The clerk, I will just say that the clerk does have notice of this in both official languages. That pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee invite the Minister of Jobs and Families, the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, the Secretary of State for Seniors, the Secretary of State for Labor, and the Secretary of State for Children and Youth to appear separately before the committee, each accompanied by their officials for a minimum of just 1 hour to discuss their respective mandates and key priorities in their service to Canadians. So I think that this is something that's just quite standard. I know in the past this committee has been very good with doing that. I know that we've heard a lot that this is a new government with a new mandate, with a new leader and a new prime minister, so it would be great to have them at our committee to hear what their mandates are, and also to be able to hear what they are planning to do for Canadians.
Thank you, Ms. Falk. Clerk, is the motion in order? Then Ms. Katrakis on the motion of...
Chair, can we suspend for a few minutes just so that we can kind of huddle together and come back?
Okay, we'll suspend for a couple of moments. We'll suspend for 5. Session. So we had the motion of Ms. Falk, and then the floor was Ms. Koutrakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're fine with this motion as is, and we are willing to adopt it as is.
Madame Gill?
Oui, je suis en faveur également de la motion.
Yes, I also agree with the motion.
So to me, it's unanimous. So the motion of Ms. Falk is adopted, Clerk. Mr. Jana, Mr. on another matter?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Chair. Chair and colleagues, I wanted to raise the issue, which I think is critical for this committee, of student unemployment. We're headed into the summer, and I'm sure everybody saw the latest Statistics Canada report. Very high unemployment rates among young people in general, but particularly high for returning students. We're in a situation now where more than 1 in 5 returning students are unemployed this summer. And that's a source of hardship for those students, but it also raises significant questions about their future and, by extension, the future of our country. Students need summer employment often to be able to pay for their academic journey, but also to be able to acquire skills and experience that they can then leverage for their next steps. And I know we're headed into a parliamentary summer break, but I wanted to propose that we consider doing some work collaboratively on the student unemployment issue to confront this real and present crisis of students being out of work, and see if we can propose in a reasonable time frame some solutions to the government along these lines. So I wanted to put forward a motion on that, Chair. There may be some discussion about aspects of it. That's totally fine, but I've put it together as kind of a first volley about how we might approach it, and I'll flip it to the clerk in both languages just after I read it. The motion is as follows. Statistics Canada has identified that more than 1 in 5 returning students are unemployed this summer. Therefore, the committee agrees that in the face of the student unemployment crisis, and given that Parliament did not sit at all this year until May 17th, May 26th, this committee conduct a study of the student unemployment crisis pursuant to Standing Order 1082, consisting of at least 5 meetings, and with all hearings to occur before July 31st, 2025. Parliamentarians must be prepared to get to work this summer so that unemployed students can get to work as well. Colleagues, with the technology we have at our disposal now for virtual meetings, I do think having some summer hearings is much easier than it used to be. We are able to participate in hearings from our ridings using virtual tools. To do 5 meetings before the end of July is a total of 10 hours. So 10 hours of hearings in the course of a month and a half period, I think is reasonable and allows us to, again, in a collaborative way, hear from witnesses and confront a very real present crisis. As I say in the text of the motion, us getting to work will allow young people to get to work. And the I don't think this is a study that should wait for the fall because this is a critical time for young people who are missing these opportunities, and we might be able to hear some testimony and put forward some recommendations in real time that would be very impactful for young people. So the motion is on the table now, and obviously can be amended. And I'd love to hear from colleagues about if people want to take this up and proceed with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janus. I just would the clerk have to suspend for a few moments while we don't have it here. So I'm going to suspend for Madame Gill. I'm going to suspend for.
You do have it in both languages. It's okay to suspend. You have it in both languages. Right? Okay, great. Okay, perfect.
Okay, we're going to suspend for 4 minutes. Suspend. the committee is back in session. It's my understanding, and I will go to Madame Gill in a moment. It's my understanding everybody should now have the motion that was moved by Mr. Jennis. So with that, I'm going to go to Madame Gill. Madame Gill, you had your hand up.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to state that I wanted to speak on the motion after Mr. Jenris because I also have a notice of motion to table.
Okay, then do we have anybody? It's been moved by Mr. Janus. Ms. Goodrich on the motion, and Madame Koutrakis?
Thank
Ms.
you.
Goodrich, on the motion of Mr. Janus.
Yes, to speak to this issue, I really appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chair. I started when we were prorogued. I decided to take it upon myself to spend my time trying to connect with people that I don't normally get a chance to connect with, primarily high school students. And so I took the opportunity to travel to many different communities in my riding, visiting with different high school age students. And one of the things that shocked me the most was how many times the students would bring up as one of their number one concerns was youth unemployment. And as I started going through this, I started asking them questions of like, how many of you guys have a part-time job? Generally, it would only be a handful of kids in the class that would raise their hand. And then when I would ask further, like, how many of you guys want a part-time job? Almost everyone would put their hand up. And then when I asked, how many of you guys are actively applying for jobs? And I had some students tell me they'd applied for upwards of 200 jobs and hadn't got a phone call back. And this is the real story. And this isn't Fort McMurray, where we have a relatively low unemployment rate compared to other parts of the country. And so then as I started going through and asking other colleagues, found that this is something that is a serious issue that is facing us. And as we're approaching the summer very quickly, I think it is incumbent on us as politicians to make sure that we find out what is the cause of this, because this wasn't something that I was hearing when I was going to high schools last year. This is a new problem that was caused by the previous government, and it's incumbent on us as parliamentarians to get to the bottom of this sooner rather than later, so that we can give a future to the next generation. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Goodrich. I just can check. Does everybody now have the motion? It was circulated to your P9. So, okay, we all have it. Ms. Koutrakis on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't think, colleagues, you'll find anyone around this table to disagree that this is not an important issue. Obviously, it's a very important issue, and it is a study that merits to be looked at. But I don't believe that having this study over the summer is going to solve the issue that 1 in 5 young people can't find a job. We just announced the Canada Summer Jobs. We increased it by 6,000, so there's 76,000 new jobs happening right now for the summer. I think that this is a study that needs to be done. I would say the timeline is probably a little problematic, especially if we want to invite witnesses for the study to mean something. We have to make sure that we find the right witnesses and that witnesses are available to come. If it's amenable with you, perhaps a friendly amendment that we adopt this to be a study, but not to have the 5 meetings before September. That way, we'll give all the parties here at the committee the opportunity to determine, and send out invitations to witnesses. And I think that the study will be better for all of us. It is an important issue. We all agree that we need to look at this closer, but let's do it the right way and not rush it through and end up with a study that doesn't really give us the fruits that we're looking for.
So just so clear, Ms. Koutrakis, did you make an amendment? Was that in the form of an amendment to the motion? Okay. So now we have an amendment. We have an amendment to the motion.
Chair, I wanted to speak, but just a point of order. If we're going to have an amendment, we do need to know kind of what's being removed, what's coming. Because there's something I was, or maybe we can talk a couple more back and forth and see if we can arrive at some kind of a consensus, however you want to do it, but I didn't hear specific wording. So if we're going to debate an amendment, we need to.
Well, I thought it was clear, but Ms. Kotrakis, if you could verbalize it again.
The only thing that I would ask if we could change is the date by end of July 31st to end of September. So September 30th.
Everybody clear? Do you need that on paper, written? It's clear. It's changing the study timeline conclusion from July till September, as articulated by Ms. Kotrakis.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair. If I could speak on the amendment. Just thinking this through, I guess a couple thoughts. I think it is valuable to begin this work as soon as possible. I'm not proposing, study completed by the end of June, right? I mean, I think I agree that there are studies happening now on bills like C5 with a breakneck pace that's done sometimes. I think in this case we can find a middle path that recognizes the urgency of it, but doesn't say we're going to do it all this week. But I mean, thinking about what would need to unfold if we give ourselves a week to 10 days to identify witnesses, and then there's a period of a week to 10 days to invite and schedule those witnesses, we would still be able to do these hearings, I think, fairly easily before the end of July. Look, I don't think that that us having a hearing on its own is going to get all of these students back to work, but I do think that we can, through a process of these hearings, hear ideas, magnify concepts that could be implemented by the government. And the numbers are pretty significant. I mean, I know that the minister and others have talked about kind of the federally funded summer jobs program within that. We've got over 2 million post-secondary students in this country. 1 in 5 returning students are struggling to find jobs. So this is clearly orders of magnitude beyond what has been proposed so far. The other issue with September 30th date is I don't think it would be realistic to pack all these hearings in the last 2 weeks of September. If that was the idea, we're probably still with that talking about some summer hearings anyways. So, I mean, maybe if we say 5 hearings before August 30th, with the understanding that we're going to kind of space them out. I mean, I would like to start early, think about how we can space them out. Maybe there's some witnesses that are ready to present to us right away, some that are ready to present later on. We can talk about if the number of meetings is right as well. But I do think doing some work on this, starting earlier in the summer and continuing, would make the most sense. So I want to kind of see if we can meet in the middle on timeline.
Discussion. We do have an amendment, a motion to amend that's currently on the floor. Any further discussion, Ms. Kotrakis, on your amendment?
To my colleague across the way, I'm sure that we could find a friendly way to make sure that we all get what we're looking for. We agree that a study needs to be done. Doing it in the summer is not the ideal time to do this. Students are going to be unemployed, as you say. I happen to remain more positive that students will be employed. The government does have programs in place to help them. I don't see how a study in August and before the House rises again in September is going to help the employment situation of our students over the summer. I really don't. I think that if we're serious about doing a study like that, we should take our time and make sure that we put the framework in place that is going to yield a study that we could look to and we can present and make sure that we do it right. I don't agree. I don't know what my other colleagues feel around the table, but I am not in agreement with that. I think that it's very reasonable to ask for September 30. All of us are going to be very busy in our constituencies. There's a lot of work to be done. Every MP around this table, there are many newly elected members that are still getting their teams in place. I just think let's be logical. This is about working together in a friendly manner to make sure that we all get what we're looking for. No one is saying no to the study. We're just looking at the timeline. And I don't think that September 30 is an unreasonable timeline given where we're at, in the schedule of this session that just started.
Thank you, Ms. Katraga. Ms. Goodrich on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with my colleague, Mr. Janis. This is something that we absolutely do need to start, and we need to get done sooner rather than later. I think his recommendation of doing till the end of August shows that we are serious about doing this. And quite frankly, I think students need to hear that their government actually understands and acknowledges that there is a problem. And saying that we can kick this down the road and wait till September to hash this out doesn't tell them that we're taking it with the urgency that they are telling us very clearly, or at least they were in Fort McMurray Cold Lake, telling me very clearly this was their priority. And I think that for many of these students, they're making hard decisions. Can they actually go on to post-secondary? What is their fall going to look like? They're picking their classes right now, and they're making these decisions. And so if they can see that we are working on this, and hopefully they have a plan, we can give them hope. And by saying, no, this isn't our priority, we're going to wait till September to see what this looks like, that's not giving them that hope.
Thank you. Madame Delrossier. On the amendment.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just want to make sure that what we're proposing is not being misconstrued. We are not saying let's wait until September to start the work, right? We're saying let's complete it, let's extend the time of completion so we can take a little bit more time to get the right witnesses and to have the real discussion and to do the right study, right? So maybe there is a way where we're coming in the ground, where we're committing to have maybe 1 or 2 meetings over the summer, but agreeing on who the witnesses are and then who we're bringing and inviting them and scheduling it and having. I also agree. I don't think we're going to be in the same place if we just wait and cram everything in September, right? So that's not what we're proposing here. Just want to extend the time so there's more time and prepare it. And I think we're ready to have, a couple of these over the summer, but completed at the end of August.
Thank you. Mr. Janis on the amendment.
Yeah, so, there's a couple ways committees can make decisions. They can make decisions by motion. They can make them by understanding. So if we can maybe just identify what our understanding would be around scheduling, and then we can adopt the amendment in that spirit. So I think it would make sense if the chair would endeavor to schedule these in a sort of periodic way, not so it's like, okay, we September 29th, we're going to get extra time in the evening when we're already back here and try to do a whole bunch, but that we would have try to have a couple meetings in July, 1 or 2 meetings in August, and a meeting in September, right? We don't be too rigid about that, but if we have an understanding that we're not going to end load this, that we are going to begin the work, I think it does make sense to try to get started sooner rather than later. But if we can kind of agree to that in a spirit of cooperation, then I think we probably have an understanding that we can move on. Fair enough?
Not really.
Yeah. If the clerk can clarify, but if at the end of the committee meeting you have motions and then you have agreements of the committee. So if there's, I just want to put it out there for discussion, but if there's an agreement of the committee that the chair would seek to schedule these meetings in a kind of I don't know what way to say this is, but in a relatively evenly spaced out fashion rather than all at once. If people don't agree to that, then we've got to be a bit more rigid. But if that's our understanding, then that works for me. Sorry, I didn't need to touch the mic. I'm not supposed
Okay, currently, before the committee is an amendment to the motion that moves the completion date till September 30th. The motion only then carried the rest of the motion. The only significant part of the motion was 10 hours, was it? 5, because I don't have it in front of me.
Sorry, I can just make this simpler. We can, if people like the direction I proposed, then we can adopt the amendment, and then I can propose another amendment which gives some guidance to the chair about trying to schedule them in an even way as discussed. Is that what people want?
Okay, I'm seeing there seems to be consensus that we would move the date to...
Just to clarify, we would put the amendment that it's to the end of September, or to until between now and September 30th, and then you would do another amendment asking the chair to start working on scheduling those?
Maybe I'll propose an additional amendment that says the committee, the chair should endeavor to schedule 1 to 2 meetings a month during that period. Fair enough? Okay. One to two. The chair should endeavor to schedule 1 to 2 of those meetings per month.
Okay. What I would like to deal with, because you can't come back, is let's deal with the First Amendment, which was the timeline, and then to the 30th, unless you're making an amendment to the amendment.
Yeah, Chair, just as part of the debate on the First Amendment, can I sub-amend, or am I outside the scope of the sub-amendment of the original amendment to propose this?
No.
I'm okay.
You're okay with that? Okay. All right.
I'm okay, because we seem to be arriving at a consensus, but we have an amendment that seems to be some consensus on for the 30th, but more clarification on the scheduling of the meetings.
So, Chair, I will add a sub-amendment then, that after the date, I will add the sentence, the chair should endeavor to schedule 1 to 2 of these meetings per month.
Is everybody comfortable?
The clerk has just asked me to repeat it. The chair should endeavor to schedule 1 to 2 of these meetings per month.
Endeavor to. 1 to 2.
I'm giving you a little wiggle room, Chair, but I don't want you to use it. So I'm trying to be...
You only control one side of it, Mr. Dennis. Just so that everybody is clear on where they're at.
If we could just see the full text, right? I think.
Mr. Jones. I'll ask the clerk to read Mr. Genes's verbiage in the record.
And so the verbiage would be that Statistics Canada has identified that more than 1 in 5 returning students are unemployed this summer. Therefore, the committee agrees that in the face of this student unemployment crisis, and given that Parliament did not sit at all this year until May 26, this committee conduct a study of the student unemployment crisis pursuant to Standing Order 1082, consisting of at least 5 meetings, and with all hearings to occur before September 30th, 2025, and that the chair should endeavor to schedule 1 or 2 of these meetings per month. Parliamentarians must be prepared to get to work this summer so that unemployed students can get to work as well.
Okay, thank you, clerk. Anybody have any questions on the motion as it was currently phrased by the clerk, which would accommodate two, an amendment and a sub-amendment? Any discussion? No, we're dealing with it all. Yep. Any discussion? Madame Koutrakis?
Chair, can you read Mr.
Yep, he did. I'll get the clerk to read the motion that reflects the amendment of Madame Koutrakis and the proposed sub-amendment of Mr. Janis. One more time. Clerk, read the motion as it would now be phrased.
Statistics Canada has identified that more than 1 in 5 returning students are unemployed this summer. Therefore, the committee agrees that, in the face of the student unemployment crisis, and given that Parliament did not sit at all this year until May 26th, this committee conduct a study of the student unemployment crisis pursuant to Standing Order 1082, consisting of at least 5 meetings, and with all hearings to occur before September 30th, 2025, and that the chair should endeavor to schedule 1 or 2 of these meetings per month. Parliamentarians must be prepared to get to work this summer so that unemployed students can get to work as well.
Madame Gill?
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if Mr. Janis is working over the summer, but I know that a lot of us will be working over the summer. Regarding the sub-amendment, I will be voting against. This seems like a 1064. I think that it's being done, and we are prioritizing dates instead of going through a 1064. And generally, the subcommittee would meet to decide on the prioritizing studies. And so that's the comment that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, based on that, Ms. Koutrakis?
Mr. Chair, can we put them to a vote?
That's where I'm going. Okay.
Start with the supplement.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ms. Gill. Given that I see no consensus in the room, I'm going to begin with a vote on the sub-amendment. So we're clear. Mr.
Which one?
The sub-amendment of the amendment of Ms. Koutrakis by Mr. Janis would read, and that the chair should endeavor to schedule 1 or 2 of these meetings per month. So we're voting on that one. Then the amendment was on the, would be the date in September. So are we clear, Madame Gill? Good. Okay, see no further discussion. Clerk, I'll call a recorded vote on the sub-amendment of Mr. Janis, which would request the chair to schedule 1 or 2 meetings per month on the motion if it is adopted. Recorded vote. Clear?
Madame Desrochers. Ms. Fancy. Monsieur Joseph.
Non.
Madame Koutrakis.
Contre.
Ms. Falk. Yes. Mr. Janis.
Yes.
Ms. Goodridge.
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds.
Yes.
Madame Gill.
Non.
The sub-amendment has been defeated. We'll now go to a vote on the amendment, which moves the timeline to September the 30th. Clerk, recorded vote on the amendment of Ms. Koutrakis.
Madame Desrochers.
Oui.
Ms. Fancy.
Yes?
Mr. Joseph. Madame Koutakis. Ms. Falk.
No.
Mr. Jennis.
No.
Ms. Goodrich.
No.
Mr. Reynolds.
No.
Madame Gill.
Oui.
The amendment has been carried. We'll now call a vote on the motion as amended. Clerk, recorded vote on the motion of Mr. Jennis as amended.
Madame Desrochers.
No.
Madame Fancy.
No.
Mr. Joseph.
Non.
Madame Koutakis.
No.
Ms. Falk. Yes. Mr. Jennis.
Yes.
Ms. Goodrich.
Oui.
Mr. Reynolds.
Yes.
Madame Gill.
Non.
The motion has been defeated. Mr. Jennis?
Chair, I have a hard time understanding what happened because in the vote, because we had a discussion in which Liberal members said they wanted this study to happen on student unemployment. They got the adoption of their amendment, which extended the study until September 30th, and they still voted against the study happening. So if you're serious about addressing the issue of student unemployment, and we put forward a motion to do that, and it then amended the motion. The Liberals amended this motion, and then they voted against it anyways. So that's pretty surprising. I don't want to sour the first meeting by suggesting there was insincerity, but can we come to some kind of understanding about whether you want to address the issue of student unemployment or not? Because we're interested in doing that, and if that means meeting is in August or September instead of July, I mean that's not my preference, but that's okay. But you just voted against studying student unemployment at all. So can we come to some understanding, or do we have to go out and observe that there wasn't interest in studying this issue after all? I mean, I hope we can come up with something together. So I'll put it out for discussion.
Ms. Koutakis?
Chair, I motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
We have a motion to adjourn. It's still there.
Yeah, recorded vote on that.
Recorded vote to adjourn. Clerk?
Madame Desrochers.
Adjourn? Yes?
Yes. Ms. Fancy.
Yes.
Monsieur Joseph.
Yes.
Madame Koutakis.
Oui.
Ms. Falk. No. Mr. Jennis.
Absolutely.
Ms. Goodrich.
No.
Mr. Reynolds.
No.
Madame Gill.
Oui.
The meeting is adjourned.